Hi there, my name is Steve Gerhardt, and as always, this is the Unagi Observer. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching the video. I always appreciate that you guys do that. It warms my heart. As you guys know, this is primarily an anime review channel. We also do talk about Japanese culture, history, films, and things like that. We also branch out into other things like gaming and science fiction. And I believe I told you at the beginning of this season that we're going to talk a little bit more about science fiction than normal. And so this is going to be the first, I think, really science fiction review of the season. And it is going to be a book review on Mechanize My Hands to War by Aaron K. Wagner. So let's get started. As you guys also know, I am a big supporter of public libraries. I think they are wonderful places. You can find so much information. They are safe places to go to, a quiet place to sit down and contemplate or read, check out books for free, and take them home and enjoy them. So yes, please support your local library. Okay, that rant is done. I'm going to step off of that soapbox. But we're going to talk about this book, Mechanize My Hands to War by Aaron K. Wagner. So I got to tell you, I read no reviews on this. I'm not familiar with the author. And I was literally in the stacks at the Enoch Pratt Free Library, main branch over here in Baltimore. And I just happened to see the title, and I was like, Mechanize My Hands to War. That sounds interesting. And then I pulled it off the shelf, and I, saw that very, very interesting graphic and cover. And I was just like, I'll give it a try. And that's literally why the cover grabbed me and the title grabbed me. And I was just like, why not? We'll give it a go, see what happens. This book was published in 2024. Aaron K. Wagner writes speculative fictions. This is a speculative sci-fi novel. It is about androids. And one of the things about robot and android stories is that they usually fall into one of two categories, broadly speaking, in terms of tropes. The first one, of course, has to deal with the three laws of robotics and stories that are contained within those limitations, which can be quite interesting. And sometimes you have mysteries in that trope where maybe the robot somehow is able to violate one or all three of the robotic laws. For those of you who don't know what the robotic laws, I'll put a link down below and give you a quick definition of that, and then you get an idea what that trope is about, if you don't already know. And then, of course, the second big trope that these stories tend to fall under is the what does it mean to be human, right? And sometimes cyberpunk comes in there, with androids and things like that. And usually the idea is that the android or the robot, yes, there is a difference, is trying to be human or is experiencing something human that enables them to go, oh, I wonder if this is what humanity is. And it's something that sometimes the mechanized individual wants and desires. And so usually we have those stories fall into those two tropes. Outside of that, that's when we start getting into speculative stuff. And that's where this story falls in, Mechanize My Hands to War. There are no three laws of robotics in this story. So that trope does not exist at all. Like, there's no mention of it. It does not exist. Interestingly, this is also not a story about what it means to be human for an android or a robot. Interesting twists on that, though. So what is this story? Okay, so it starts off in the future, and it is. I'm going to give you a little bit of a plot summary here, and basically, we're talking about more or less Appalachia in America. It's in the future, near future. We're talking a span of time between, I believe, 2058 and 2061, where the story bounces around in that time period. So it goes back and forth in time between those 3 years. And that's most of the story. And it does go outside that time range. I think we hit 2012 once, and we hit some earlier years a couple times as well. But that's mainly the big thrust is between 2058 and 2061. And in this world, the Earth is kind of in a bad shape, and it's not necessarily dystopian, but it's in a bad shape. The land it's hard to grow things. People are having a tough time. Energy is sort of hard to maintain. It's not hard to get, but to maintain the infrastructure, you get a sense that infrastructure is crumbling a little bit, and that the federal government, the United States federal government, is trying to do what it can to hold everything together. And in doing so, while it doesn't really say it, you get the sense that there are some kinds of draconian laws that to try to help the people. So there's this counter group called the Union. It's run by this guy named Eli Whitaker, who we get an idea of where he goes in life from an early time towards the end of the book. But he creates this group called the Union, the Civil Union. And these are people who are against the draconian measures, are against the crumbling of infrastructure. Basically, they're just saying the feds are the one that's screwing up the world, so this needs to stop. And they are bringing the nation to the brink of civil war almost. The story starts off with a interim ATF, alcohol, tobacco, firearms director, Adrian, who is tasked to bring this guy in. And she does that with the help with one of her agents that she has a connection with, Trey Caudill. And the two of them have connections to Eli Whitaker. They were actually under the care of Eli Whitaker when they were much younger. So as the story is progressing, we learn that the government is starting to use androids to do certain tasks, and it's not like androids are all everywhere in the world. This is kind of the beginning of introducing androids into the world and into more sophisticated roles, like as in caretakers, farming, security, being a soldier, and being a officer of the law. So the protocols are new. We get a lot of the people who create these androids for the government are saying, I keep trying to explain to the government, going, this is not easy for a mechanical thing to think on its own. This is not the easiest thing to program, and the government's kind of misunderstanding that. Just to kind of give you an idea of the feel of the world. Wagner starts off the book before the prelude with this, her take on a certain nursery rhyme. Ashes in the roses, ashes in the roses. The feds ring round, we all fall down. Kind of bleak. So this book is kind of bleak. It deals with subjects of use and misuse of artificial intelligence within androids in settings that they probably should not be put in. And it also talks about a world that's slowly crumbling. And when I say world, I don't necessarily mean the Earth itself, but mankind. This is kind of like almost like a slow possible extinction event for mankind. And it's kind of interesting that we're at the very beginning of what could be the end of humanity. And thrust with this radical group trying to get rid of the federal government, and these people trying to stop them, Whitaker and his civil union. And it's difficult. Everything about this story is difficult in terms of like what the characters are facing, what they're trying to do, what their goals are, the setbacks, and all these different things. It delves with into serious issues like child soldiers. So that's a thing, and they talk a lot about that. And part of the reason why they talk about that is because Adrian, who's the person who's nominally in charge of the ATF, and one of her agents, Drake Audill, as I said, were being mentored by Eli Whitaker, and this was before Whitaker created the Civil Union. So these two kids were the templates, probably, of his child army. Yeah. So, what's interesting, so that's basically the plot summary. So what's interesting about this book is like I said, it goes back and forth in time, in terms of the characters and what they're experiencing and what they're and what happened in one time period impacts this other time period. No, this is not a time travel. It's just the story just bounces back in time between 2058 and 2061. And one of the interesting things that I like about this, the way this is written, is that it retells scenes that are important from different point of views. So from one scene, you'll get maybe Trey is looking at one of the androids as they're about to do a raid, and they do the raid, and whatever comes out of that, I don't want to spoil anything. And then maybe a couple chapters later, we go back to that date in time, and it's the point of view of the androids. And it's kind of interesting how Wagner is able to, give you different perspectives of these things, and you just sit there and just go, oh my goodness, this is what they're thinking, this is what they're thinking, this is what they're doing, this is what they're doing, and these all things impact each other, and it's just like, so it's a very, very good writing device, and it helps keep you as the reader active in the book. One of the big issues in this book is the androids themselves. And like I said, we're kind of at the beginning of things, where we're sort of like introducing androids into mainstream society, and they're not prevalent just yet, but they're working on stuff. Like, some things are easier for robots to handle and do, like being a caretaker of a sick person. That's a storyline in here. What's much harder is having an android be a combat unit, and what's even further interesting is actually seeing it from the human perspective and then going to the android perspective of how they think and what they're trying to do, and how communication and programming is and very rarely syncing up. So interesting way of writing it. I enjoyed that. So would I recommend this book to you? Absolutely, I would recommend this book to you. In fact, even though I have not heard of this author before, Erin K. Wagner, looked her up real quick. It looks like she's done some other speculative fiction, and I'm going to be checking out some of her stuff because I really did enjoy this. Warning: it is bleak. It is not. This is not happy fun times. Okay, this is not for kids. As a matter of fact, I think she warns off children in her life to wait a little while before they're old enough to read this. I like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I think if you enjoy speculative science fiction, I think you're really going to enjoy that. If you enjoy robotic stories and android stories that are outside the tropes, definitely this is a good book. If you want to try that, let's say you're used to Asimov, right? You're used to the 3 laws of robotics, or maybe you're used to maybe a more of a cyberpunkian trope to this. Then you want to try something a little bit different. Please give this a try. Again, this is Mechanize My Hands to War by Erin K. Wagner. There you go. You can find it. You can probably find it in your library. Support your local libraries. And yeah, good stuff. Glad I found it. Okay, that is it for this week. That was a science fiction review of Mechanize My Hands to War by Erin K. Wagner. Again, please give it a read and go to your local library, or maybe even purchase the book. Give her some money. Yeah, why not? Why not? It looks like she does good stuff. So I can't wait to read more of her work. Something I didn't mention in the review that as I was reading this, for you anime folks out there, for those of you who want to do deep dive old anime, elements of this book reminded me of Quiet Country Cafe, which is a very peaceful anime about a robot taking care of a cafe as humanity is just slowly dying out, and like there's like no humans in the story, but they're apparently present, but you know, as a species mankind is pretty much done. But it's about this robot maintaining this cafe out in the country. And so even though that was peaceful and this is not, there are elements of that of the story of Wagner's story that kind of reminded me of that anime, Quiet Country Cafe. So if you want to give that a try, please give it a go. So yes, that is going to be it for this week. Thank you again for watching, and yeah, I hope to see you guys out in the world, out there somewhere, you know, in a convention, walking along the street, whatever. But in order for that to happen, you gotta take care of yourselves, because I love you guys. And hopefully someday we'll meet face to face. Wouldn't that be fun? So that is it. And as always, while you should be reading good science fiction like this, as always, watch more anime.